Hi, and welcome back to Weekly Dev Tips. I'm your host, Steve Smith, aka R. Dallas. This is episode 74 with our guest, Claire Novotny. We're going to be talking about the .NET Foundation. Claire is executive director of the foundation, and we're just going to spend a few minutes talking about what it is and why you should know more about it. So, Claire, what
Sure.
can you tell us about the .NET Foundation?
Thanks, Steve. So, thanks for having me. The .NET Foundation is an independent nonprofit organization that exists to support the open source ecosystem for .NET, really to help ensure the health of the ecosystem and ensure that the commercial entities and other projects, can use .NET projects without having to reinvent everything. Make sure that there's a healthy balance between the open source interests, the projects themselves, and the consumers of those projects, so that we don't have any risk, to reduce risk and uncertainty in the ecosystem.
So, what are some examples of projects that I would have heard of that are members of the foundation?
We have a lot of projects. The biggest one that everyone in the .NET ecosystem is using is .NET itself. So the .NET Foundation owns and has the intellectual property for .NET. Microsoft has pledged that, or not pledged, they've contributed that to the foundation. So we have the .NET Core, ASP.NET, Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android, and Xamarin Mac are all foundation projects. But it's not just Microsoft. We have very popular projects like AutoMapper and .NET Nuke, Fluent Validation, JSON.NET, Mono, MimeKit, Orchard, Python.NET, Prism, and I could keep going on. There's a huge number of projects. We have about 95 of them currently in the foundation today, and we're constantly growing as we seek to onboard new projects and give them the support that they need.
Cool. Yeah, I've definitely heard of and used a lot of those projects. So, why should I be a member of the foundation? Like, is it, if I'm not one of those open source, maintainers, what if I'm just a regular 9 to 5 developer? Is it something for me or not?
So it's absolutely for everyone. The foundation is there to help promote the ecosystem, but this isn't a solitary effort. We need people to help with set the direction. What do they want people? What do you want to do? The foundation exists for you, for the community. So we need that input. This isn't Microsoft setting the show. Microsoft does not control the foundation. This is really an independent company, and as an independent company, or really entity, needs the communities to be involved. It does a lot of outreach in the community. It supports a Meetup Pro network that has currently 355 meetup groups. So we cover those fees for and help support them.
Is that similar to what Ineta used to do? The Meetup Pro group?
It takes the place of that for the .NET focused, I believe. I'm not as familiar with Ineta. I wasn't as involved with the community at the time.
Okay.
But so we seek to cover those kinds of expenses and enable organizers who want to run a local group to be able to, do that without the financial cost.
Sure.
We're also recently have an effort that, again, this was community driven. We had James Montemagano and John Galloway, who, yes, do work for Microsoft, but are acting as community members. In this case, they have no special privileges here anymore. They wanted to put together a virtual meetup group series where they're experts in streaming to, live streaming on YouTube. And, that's not something I know how to do. So if I was a meetup group organizer and I want to say, look, how can I reach a wider audience? There's now a mechanism where they're not trying to create a new meetup group. They're trying to amplify the existing ones and give a wider audience. So there's a sign-up process now where if you're a meetup group and you want to say, hey, let me become a live event. Let me take my group and get this all over to, on YouTube, and we'll get this on our YouTube channel. It's open to everyone, all of the current groups, and you don't need to have the streaming expertise to do this. James and John are going to run that, and we're doing that through the foundation, providing the resources.
That's awesome, especially right now when almost every meetup group is going virtual.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing. We encourage the community to come in. There's something you want to do, and you're trying to either find like-minded people to do it with, or you need resources, or you're trying to kind of get that stamp of approval, that bigger name behind you. We're looking for doers. You're a doer. You want to do something. Absolutely. My goal is to encourage you and to enable people to do things that benefit the community. And the outreach committee is the hub of that effort, where they're kind of looking at those proposals and providing resources and budget as appropriate.
So if I become a member of the .NET Foundation, which I did just apply a few days ago, and I understand it takes a little bit of time to go through a process, but what's my experience like interacting with people? Is there like a mailing list or a Slack or a Discord, or how does that all work?
So the current form of communication is primarily through the GitHub Teams chat right now.
Okay.
GitHub has a feature on the website, if you're a member of the organization, for chats for Teams. There is a mailing list that we hardly ever use. We quite frankly don't use it. There's also because not everyone is on it, and not everyone likes receiving those kinds of emails.
Sure.
There is also a Teams team. There's a Teams that's attached that some people have used. The primary way of getting involved, though, is through those working groups, through the committees. So to express interest in the committees and say, hey, look, you want to help define membership policies, and say, look, how do we do things? What do we do for our members? Why is it important? Or the projects committee helps evaluate and set standards for our member projects. Not every project is a fit for the foundation. What is a fit? That's for the committee to decide and create the guidance around. If you're a project and want benefits, and say, look, there's a lot of benefits we provide out of the box, like code signing certificates. We can provide Azure subscriptions as needed for resources. But maybe there's something else. And you say, look, my project needs this thing over there. We're totally open to requests, and we're always looking to meet the needs that our projects have, and the projects committee can help with that. And with outreach, that's where you can kind of look at, hey, how do we reach out to the next generation of developers? What can we do to improve the diversity in the .NET ecosystem? How do we get to the next generation of developers? How do we find folks, in other parts of the world who may not be using our platform? How do we showcase the community? Lots of people are doing really cool things. Let's put a face to it. How do we share that? Exactly. And if marketing, how do we tell people about it? So we're doing cool things, and then how do we get the word out? And none of these things operate on their own. They operate because we have passionate people that come in and have an interest in sharing these with our community.
I think before we started, you and I were talking about how the foundation is led, and there's a board and there's elections. Can you talk for a minute about how that works?
Sure. So the foundation is, as I keep saying, is an independent entity. It has a board of directors, which have 6 elected people and 1 founding member that is there. So there's a 7-person board, 1 appointed and 6 elected. I am the executive director. I kind of organize the day-to-day operations of the group, and that then we have a whole bunch of committees that actually kind of are responsible for getting stuff done, as it were. And the board is responsible for setting the direction of the organization. I work for the board, which is then elected by the community. Microsoft doesn't tell me what to do, and they might offer suggestions, but
Sure.
the board is in control. The board and is responsible, saying, look, we want to do this thing, we want to go this direction. It's always about that, and so the board is a critical part of how we get things done, and it's really important that we have an active and engaged board.
Cool. All right. I think that's a great overview of the .NET Foundation. I'm hoping to learn more about it myself. Is there anything else you want to share? Anything coming up that you want people to know about?
Yeah. So the board has historically had served for 1-year terms, and I know that there's been some questions out there about the upcoming, when's the election going to be? Last year we held the election in late March and early April, and this year, because of a number of circumstances, things were delayed a bit as we look to see how do we improve the process and how do we make it better and ensure stability. So this year, where the election process is about to kick off, and it has changed a little bit from previous years. This year, the board has decided to create a staggered set so that instead of having all of the board members up for re-election every time, we're going to create a staggered term so that at most 3 people will be up for election each time. And that helps with continuity and keeping some of the experience and knowledge within the organization. So the way that's going to work is that the upcoming elections, all 6 members will be, up for re-election, and there'll be a 2-year term instead of a 1-year term, and half of them at random get the short end of the straw and we'll get a 1-year term.
Right.
So that next year we'll have another election.
So you'll have 3 even year board members and 3 odd year board members.
Correct. Exactly. And then the other part of it is that last year we had a lot of enthusiasm from the community, and I love that. We had about 48 or 50 folks running for the election. And, that seemed, it was great to have the enthusiasm. It was also a lot of information for people to, process and understand. There's also a specific set of skills that we need in the board members. Being on the board member is not a technical position. This is no one's writing code here, even though it's about .NET. It's about organizational skills. There's business development. There's a lot of, the boring stuff that many people find, quote unquote. It's running an organization. So what we're doing this year is we've established a nominating committee we are establishing a nominating committee. The board is appointing 3 to 5 people who are from both inside and outside of the community that will then nominate and vet potential board candidates. And this is a way of helping ensure that it's open and fair. I, as executive director, am explicitly not involved in that committee. It is the people, and we're going to ask folks that have been critical of us to serve on that committee. We want to have a clean, and fair and slate of candidates to choose from. And to that end, the nominating committee is going to pick at least 3 candidates per open position. And they'll weigh their expertise, like do they have experience running an organization or being in a similar kind of position, to try and kind of pre-vet the expertise. We're not saying you need to have experience in .NET. In fact, we welcome contributions and expertise from other communities. Like OpenJS has done amazing things. There's other organizations out there that have been, they've been doing great. And we want to leverage their expertise here in our foundation. So they're going to put together a slate of candidates to choose from. In this case, it will be 18. And then they'll have a 2-week campaign period followed by a 2-week voting period. And the voting system will be the same that we used last year, which is the single vote transfer Scottish rules using OPA vote. That's not changing. So you basically vote for everyone you want in priority order, and it's a little complicated. It's described on the website, but it is.
You don't waste your votes.
You don't waste your votes at all.
Right.
And so it all gets ranked, and the top 6 are going to be the new board members, and then they comes in. It'll be sometime in early August based on the timeline, and all that will be on the website that kind of shares exactly what the key parts here of the process. But I'm very excited that we're finally kicking this off and hope to have everyone participate.
Cool. All right. That sounds awesome. So I think that's a show. So that'll be it for this week. If you want to hear more from me, go to ardalis.com/tips. You can watch these shows on YouTube as well as getting them from your favorite podcast reader. And I'll see you next time with another developer tip.